Well, the Ducks don't have any warm-up games before they take on Georgia in the Chick-fil-A kickoff game on September 3rd down in Atlanta, and they are big underdogs, and so that kind of begs the question. Is there a way that Oregon can win this game? We're going to find out. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin, D1 play-by-play broadcaster and lifelong Oregon Ducks fan. Thank you for making this your first listen or your first view of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Like, comment, subscribe wherever you're listening to or watching the show. Thank you to everybody out there who has done so already. This episode brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Those of you on YouTube can see I am not alone on the show today. I'm joined by Clint Shamblin of the Locked On Georgia Bulldogs podcast, who I have not talked to in a hot minute since Dan Lanning was hired. What was that, like 3-4 years ago? Something
It
like
was
that.
a lifetime ago.
Yes, it really, really was. But the game is less than a month away as you're listening to this. This is the first, by the way, Duck fans, of a couple weeks worth of episodes I'll be recording in advance previewing this season because I am on vacation without reliable internet connection. I promise it's the last break I'll take. If you want to get in touch with me, ask me a question at smalls_55 or at Locked On Ducks, and I'll just reply directly to you there. But I won't be recording new episodes for a little bit, but I'll still be dropping them for the next couple of weeks. But Clint, great to have you back on the show, and I'm sure that you are just as excited for the season to start as we are here as Oregon fans, because it's right around the corner.
It's right there, man. It is so close. We're getting there.
We are indeed. And that first game between Georgia and Oregon, the Chick-fil-A kickoff game, Oregon, no stranger to that sort of environment. They played a big game against Auburn in 2019, LSU in 2011. There have been a whole host of contests like these. Ohio State a season ago, of course, that one went a little bit better than the games I mentioned previously here. But I bring you on the show because I want your insight on Georgia, and I promise you, Oregon fans don't want you to hold back at all.
Okay.
They're looking for the honest insight here. That they can take it. They're tough. I believe in them. So the first question I'll hit you with here, Clint. Can Oregon win this game? Not saying will they, but can they?
Look, there are so many prognosticators out there right now in the national media, given percentages, Football Outsiders, FPI, yada, yada, yada. And I don't think Georgia, there's only 2 games all season that Georgia has below a 90% win percentage chance. And it's one of them is not listed as the Ducks. I think they're giving the Ducks 8 to 10%, maybe like 9.5, 9.6, something like that. I think that percentage is a little higher because of 2 things. One, it's the first game of the season, y'all. Like, I know we all think we know what the team is, and it's nice to say that, and we have some indications, but it's a brand new season. Everything is different. Everything is new. Kirby Smart is famous for saying we're not defending national champions because no one can take that from us. We won it. It's a brand new season. Let's stay hungry. This is not us coming out for a parade. This is a brand new season. So, one hand, look, this is the first game of the season. Secondly, I'm giving 15 to 20% chance for the Ducks to win, and it comes down to a couple of things in that win. And I've heard rumors. I don't know exactly what the quarterback competition is going to be. Dan Lanning wants to bring in somebody that has a little bit more of established credentials, I suppose. But if I'm a Duck fan, that percentage chance goes up if Bo Nix is not the starting quarterback for Oregon come week 1. I've heard a few things about the kid behind him. He scares me much more than Bo Nix. If Dan Lanning decides to roll Bo Nix out, it's because he wants to lose this game 9 to 27, 9 to 35, something like that. He doesn't want to get blown out and be embarrassed on national TV. He wants to keep it competitive for a couple of quarters, which I don't fault the guy. But I'm giving 15 to 20%, and that's because I believe in West Coast recruiting. I believe Oregon and Nike money has done its thing throughout the entire tenure that I've known Oregon. It does its thing on the West Coast. It was USC or Oregon. Now it's been for a couple of years just Oregon. So there's stuff in the cabinets. Mario did not leave it bare. And you get a coach who, by the way, I think his X's and O's, maybe not recruiting quite yet, but his X's and O's are better than Mario. And I have no problem saying that whatsoever. Now, Mario down in Miami, he's going to go ahead and get some recruits down there, but he's not going to game plan as much. He's going to leave that to other people. So 15 to 20% is my guess. Bo Nix is not going to be the reason. Duck fans, I'm here. I'm trying to tell you, I tried to educate Auburn fans for years. He's not the quarterback you think he is.
Well, I can tell you that Oregon fans are already very split on the Bo Nix acquisition via the transfer portal, and there were a number of people who wanted to see Ty Thompson, the guy I'm sure you were alluding to,
Yes. Thank you.
step in and be the starter. What I will say about that, I'm sure you didn't watch the Oregon spring game, nor did I expect you to. I love the promise that Ty Thompson has. He was impressive at the Manning Passing Academy. He's got a big arm. He's got a big frame in that spring game, what we saw and kind of what we've heard from practice reports as well, all throughout the spring, and we'll monitor them throughout the fall camp as well, is that from a developmental standpoint, not that Bo Nix is at a very, very high level, but Ty Thompson is behind him. And Thompson had a pretty good first half, but a pretty rough second half in the spring game. He ended up going 12 for 27, and it's not a major indictment to say that he, isn't quite ready to start yet. Not every big time quarterback recruit is ready to come in and play right away, and he might be further along in that development if he'd had the same offensive system, but now he has to learn a new one. And so Bo Nix, I think from where we're standing, feels like the safe option, but he's definitely had experience against Georgia before, which is at the same time kind of like, I don't know if you're a Marvel fan, Clint, but like that scene in Avengers Infinity War when Thanos is taking over Asgard and he's killing everybody, and then Loki and Thor are there, and Loki goes to Thanos to offer his services, and he says, "If you're going to Earth, I have a bit of experience at that realm." And Thanos says, "If you consider failure experience." And Loki says, "I consider experience experience." Right now, it kind of seems like Bo Nix is Loki in that scenario. It's like, I've seen him. I've been there before.
Oh
It
my
didn't
gosh.
go the way we wanted it to, but I've been there before.
That is so beautiful. By the way, also in personality and everything, that hits, that slaps on the Bo Nix front, 100%.
So, in the games you've seen Georgia play against Bo Nix, and Dan Lanning was the defensive coordinator, but we're not going to sit here and pretend that Kirby Smart had nothing to do with those
There you go.
defensive game plans as well. Though you imagine there's some adjustment anytime you lose a major coordinator there, but when your
Oh
coach
yeah.
comes from that side of the ball, it makes you feel a little bit better as a Georgia fan, I'm sure. But in those games against Georgia, Bo Nix struggled mightily, did not win any of the contests against the Bulldogs. Why? Why did he struggle?
Here's where he struggles, and here's what's going to absolutely infuriate Oregon fans. And because again, being from the West Coast and watching Ducks, there's misdirection that is in this offense. There's satellite players a lot, and I don't know if that still seems to be a lot of the West Coast feel, and maybe not as much Big Ten or SEC kind of power running we call it, which I hate calling it that because you can spread out an offense and still have power run game. I know it's crazy. Nobody believes that, but you can. Um, the thing that Bo Nix struggles with is confusion. Bo Nix gets confused easily, and I mean easily. If he doesn't have his first read and he doesn't have if he has to go second or third, he starts patting that ball in the pocket and having to do progressions. It's not pretty. And where Georgia got disruptive was a free edge runner in Bo Nix face. Game's over. He's done. What he's going to do is rely on what his DNA has given him better than anybody, which he's quick and he's nimble for a quarterback, and he's going to rely on that. He doesn't go back to discipline. He's not eye discipline. He's not read discipline. And when push comes to shove and he's getting there, he's going to take off. He's going to rely on athleticism. And that's what happened to Georgia. There was one sustained drive against Georgia last year. They had success. That's because Tank Bigsby was taking off 5, 6, 7 yard runs. It was a methodical drive, the first play or the first drive of the game. And then they got down in the red zone, and Bo Nix couldn't read. And when the field condensed, when it shortened, it got really bad for him. And that's not good when you have to fight in a phone booth with Georgia, because that's what they're going to want to do. And this year, Dan Lanning leaving, there's a new defense in. We lost all these draft picks. They're all over the place. Our defensive backs are more experienced this year than they were last year. Last year was our defensive line. I actually think, this is my guess, Glenn and Kirby being the defensive coordinator in Georgia, because he is the defensive coordinator. He has other defensive coordinators, but he's the guy. I think they're going to blitz more this year. They have a lot of inexperienced linebackers. Do you know what linebackers don't have a lot of problem doing? Blitzing an A gap or a B gap and going and finding football. That's the solution to bad eye discipline. So um, that's what I think is going to happen. They're going to blitz more. When Bo Nix got blitzed, when he got pressure, it fell apart. So that's the fraud of his passing game that he has a lot of problems with.
Well, the flaw that some job seekers have is that they're not using LinkedIn. As you gear up for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders, like Oregon's offense. And particularly offensive line might need to be for this game, which we'll get to in a moment. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. It's a lot of individuals to help fill the jobs that you need. Every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn. Did you know that? And you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We keep rolling here on Locked On Ducks with Clint Shamblin of the Clint Shamblin. Don't want to leave out that B in the name of the Locked On Georgia Bulldogs podcast. I think we're in agreement that if Oregon wins this game, it's not going to be on the right arm of Bo Nix primarily. Now, he has to do some things well. He's got to convert a couple third downs. He's got to be able to make an explosive play or two. I think most notably, he's got to avoid a big turnover that would give Georgia maybe an easy touchdown or a short field to work with there. Got to help your defense stay off the field. There are things that he needs to do, but I don't think that the way Oregon wins this game is he comes out, goes for 320 and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions, and he runs for 70 yards and a touchdown. Like that's just not a really feasible goal here. But if I told you right now, Clint, knowing what you know about Georgia, that Oregon pulls off this upset as they did a year ago at Ohio State, and they walk out of Atlanta as winners, which neither of us think is going to happen. But if I told you that it were to happen, how do you think it would play out?
Yeah, that's what's interesting. I'm going to juxtapose this with a team every single year, and every single year on the calendar when this game comes up, I start sweating bullets, nervousness, and nobody believes it because nobody thinks it's actually true. But Kentucky in the SEC and on Georgia's schedule continually gives me fit because every single year, here's what the game of Kentucky's like. It's 9-12 at the beginning of the fourth quarter against Georgia, and I look at it and I go, "How in the world is this happening?" And how it happens is Coach Stoops over Kentucky has a really disciplined group. They play incredible defense and they have sound running game and they're disciplined in the trenches. And then they have a couple of things here and there that pop off, a couple of big plays. Last year, 2 years ago, Kentucky didn't even have a quarterback. Literally, I'm not making that. I'm not saying he was bad. I'm saying that a wide receiver came in and played quarterback, and they were in the game against Georgia. And to your point, I would know that there are no interceptions. If Oregon wins this game, it's because there are zero turnovers, no interceptions, do not give that short field. And the running backs have ran for about 48 to 52 attempts in this game. And there's misdirection and there's counter and there's off tackle. And they're trying to get the inside linebackers I alluded to earlier that are inexperienced, eye discipline out of alignment. Because all it takes is 2 steps. If you got a good interior lineman and they're able to get up on the second level and 2 steps for an inside linebacker the wrong way, now that lineman has the edge on you and he's going to wall you off. And if there's a quick hitter, when I say quick hitter, I do not mean a scat back. I am not talking Dexter McCluster. I'm not talking that. I am talking a Georgia fan, DeAndre Swift, a 1 foot in the ground, up and go, get to speed, get to sixth gear in a hurry to get 5, 6, 7, 8 yards, and maybe beat a backer on an angle and get 35 yards. That is if Oregon wins, 0 turnovers, disciplined defense, and running backs who are taking chunk plays, misdirection against inside linebackers.
Yeah, I think 0 turnovers would certainly please Dan Lanning and Kenny Dillingham. I think you could have one if you're Oregon and still win, as long as it's not a super punitive one. You know, like if you're at the 45 and Bo Nix takes a deep shot and Georgia picks it off at their own 30, That's not, that's basically the
That's a
same
punt.
as, yeah, it's kind of like a punt. If it's something like that, obviously you lose an opportunity to score points, but you're not, throwing you can't have a turnover in the red zone. You can't get stopped on fourth down in the red zone. You got to be able to convert all those sorts of situations. I think Oregon has to play a mostly clean game, but I think even when teams pull upsets, they don't play perfectly. They play very
Yep.
well, but it's not as if they play 100% perfect football, but they win those crucial downs. Oregon last year against Ohio State, when they got the win, they were very good on fourth down defense. They stopped Ohio State twice, and the Buckeyes had driven on the other side of the 50, and on the first drive of the game, forced an incompletion, and then later Noah Sewell just absolutely stuffed Travion Henderson
Hmm.
in the hole. It was a big boy collision right there. And I am very glad that number one is back to anchor Oregon's defense here in 2022 again before he heads off to the NFL after this season. I know you don't study the Ducks per se, or have all the ins and outs of the roster and such, but from what you know about them and what Georgia fans know about them and the conversations I'm sure you've had with them, talking about this game from time to time, what worries you the most about Oregon as a team with Dan Lanning at the helm?
Two things come to mind. Dan Lanning is going to preach discipline all the way through, from top to bottom of this program. It's going to be discipline, 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 fundamentals, 100%. And that might not excite players, but again, if you go back and look at the coaches and look at the teams that do this well, there's a reason Lincoln Riley is on his fourth stop and will continue to do so, because he doesn't teach discipline. He might be innovative, might be a play caller, might have a memory of a guru, but look at the Savins, look at the Kirby Smarts, look at those players, those coaches. Get the players to buy into disciplined football all the way throughout so that you can do the inventive stuff. Dan Lanning is going to preach that. So what scares me is, here's my perception of Oregon, and I grew up on the West Coast, so I know a little bit about this, is talent is not the question in the Pacific Northwest for this team. They are the school that gets the premier talent. But I'll utilize another team that doesn't get talent, that actually has made some waves. Oregon State can't get a recruit to save their life, but all of a sudden they won a few games here and there because they got a coach in there who knows how to get players to be disciplined, and then gets inventive on play calling and sticks with it. So that scares me. Number one, of this team is, before there was probably lesser discipline. I'll use a kind phrase, where now there's going to be more. And secondly, recruiting, the speed, the wide receivers. Cali, as well as Washington, as well as Oregon, has kids that can just ball on the outside, and that's what scares me the most. I said that Bo Nix isn't going to win the game for them, but if you tell me a couple of shots with a wide receiver getting deep, Georgia fans have in their mind, anytime a wide receiver gets beyond the safety in any sort of drill, we just have PTSD from watching the 2nd and 26. That's what terrifies me a great deal. And Oregon has those players because they've always had those players, and they always recruit the West Coast. The defense doesn't scare me. I mean, Sewell is an all world talent, but outside of him, I don't know who on the edge is going to be able to compete with our tight ends. I mean, Sewell might be able to bump and tackle and meet Kendall Milton in a hole and do a big boy collision, which, by the way, that would be fantastic. I don't know who would win in that case. That'd be whew, talk about big boy football. But now all of a sudden, on the edge, with the tight ends that we have in the room, who are bigger, faster, stronger than anybody, what scares me about Oregon is the ability, just on a stupid bonehead misdirection play on Georgia, they miss a wide receiver getting behind them, and it's 7.
It's funny you mentioned 7 rather than 6, because a speedster that Oregon is hopeful and optimistic about this year, a converted running back. He's going to play kind of that hybrid running back receiver role. He'll be wearing number 7. His name is Seven McGee. He is an
Okay.
absolute barn burner when it comes to speed. He had a big explosive passing play on the first play from scrimmage in the Oregon spring game, and that element, that you're talking about, the ability to go over the top. Oregon has wide receivers who are capable of doing that. But a year ago, I don't know if you knew this, Clint, it was lacking from the offense
Yes.
regularly. the downfield shots weren't there, and scoring was hard. Colin Cowherd talks about this all the time, and he made great points about it when Drew Brees was at the end of his career. He used to say, man, Drew Brees has to work so hard because his arm just isn't there. There's no easy touchdowns. There's no gimmies, right? There's nothing like that. That was very much Oregon's offense a year ago. They had two 99-yard drives against Ohio State in that big upset win, which are fantastic and great drives. But I don't think they had a play that was more than like 17 yards
That's
in
right.
in either of those drives. It just was not something that they philosophically or execution wise were able to bring to fruition. The wide receiver talent is there. Dante Thornton is a guy who will be on the outside, 6'5", long strides, fast runner. He can go over the top. Seven McGee can get over the top. I think in the mid-range area, you're going to need to see guys like Troy Franklin and Chris Hudson, Chase Cota, the UCLA transfer as
Mm,
well, be effective in that sense. But when you're talking about guys going over the top of the defense, Franklin can do that, but I think he's at his best when he's running a 15-yard dig route on you. But I think McGee from the slot, maybe Hudson a little, but McGee and Thornton, I think those are the big play threats that Oregon's got to be able. You got to have at least one, right? I mean, you
yep.
never really see an upset like this, and it would be an upset. Though Oregon's going to be a good team, I do think Georgia's at a different level, and the betting line is reflective of that. It's like an 18-point line, which I think is a little
Yep.
high, but also the fact that they would allow it to get there is still very telling. But if Oregon is going to win this game, you gotta just think of every upset you've ever seen. There's a big play in there offensively, right? There's
Yes.
that easy touchdown that feels like it snags the momentum and it brings it to the underdog side, no pun intended, and it just kind of gives it that feel of like, oh, whoa, this is happening. This right here, this is happening now. And Oregon had that a season ago. CJ Verdell came out in the third quarter and on third down and I think four or something busted a 70-plus yard touchdown run. That was the moment, obviously at halftime, I was really pleased with where Oregon was at. And I was thinking, okay, we're alive. We're in this game. He
Yeah.
came out and busted that big run. And that's when I thought, we got something here. That has to come somewhere. If it comes in the running game, great. But I think the potential for a big play with the right arm of Bo Nix, who again doesn't have to do a lot, but will I think have to be able to convert on a couple of downfield shots, and he has the arm to do it. He can launch the ball down the field. He's
Yes, he
got all the
can.
physical tools. With him as you were talking about, it's right here. It's on that little 1 foot by 1 foot piece of real estate that he's got to be able to make those sorts of adjustments and such. Dan Lanning was at Oregon or was at Georgia for several years. Now he's at Oregon. Look at that. We're learning every day.
Every day you learn something new.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like how scatterbrained I can be. But he was there for several years. He was a linebackers coach. He was a defensive coordinator. When he got hired, and I asked you about him, you said, "Yeah, we all knew this day was coming." Like he's always been very smart, energetic. He's a young guy. And to answer something you alluded to earlier, he has been recruiting up to our standards so far. Hopefully, as this episode drops, there's another big name that they've gotten. But so far, the recruiting is a thumbs up. Duck fans are certainly hoping that schematically he'll be an upgrade over what Cristobal was from time to time on Saturdays. But how do you think that his institutional knowledge of Georgia and their schematical approach will play into Oregon's favor a little bit, in having a little bit of an advantage there, and that he knows what they want to do here, he knows what they want to do here, and Kirby Smart, a really good football coach, will surely make some tweaks, but fundamentally the things he wants to do are still kind of the same.
Yeah, I loved the landing spot for Dan coming to Oregon, and for a number of reasons. It didn't work. I don't think it's going to work with Boise State coming down to be at Auburn, Bo Nix, old stomping grounds. I don't think that's going to be a good. But I think taking a Southern boy and putting him in the Pacific Northwest is going to be fine and dandy, because this. I'm going to do a little line from Saban to Kirby to Dan. Think of Mel Tucker the same way. Here's what they do. There is a stamp. I had a guy in art, a buddy of mine who went to art school, and what they did in art school is they studied the masters, and all you did was replicate the masters for like 2 years, and then you got to start playing on your own stuff. But inevitably, It's the same line. It's a plumb line all the way through. Kirby Smart took Nick Saban's coaching philosophy and added family onto it. His team is a family. He is tight-lipped. He is energetic. He is passionate. He will get after people. He will cuss in a press conference. He will get very, very angry. But his players know that man will bleed for me. That's something that Nick Saban probably doesn't have, or maybe has behind closed doors a little bit more. He's a little bit more. I'm saying it because it's a Ducks podcast, and I hate Nick Saban, but he's more of a prima donna to people. He likes to be liked. Where Dan Lanning doesn't have that. He takes Kirby Smart, that family feel, that these are my people, these are my tribe. And now he takes it to the Pacific Northwest. He's going to hit a blueprint of getting NIL money from donors upon donors in the Pacific Northwest. Washington's on the way down. Oregon State's never been a thing. Dan's going to get that, going to get players. The only big, I think, competition is USC on the West Coast, but I think he's going to have more of an edge when it comes to, again, that discipline comes development. Taking 3 stars and making them first round draft. That's where Dan Lanning is going to excel beyond all measure, and why I love it, because you're going to get a kid from Corvallis, maybe, or from Coos Bay or something like that, and come out there who's not been ranked at all by anybody, and he's going to be developed. That's the blueprint. That's the fingerprint that Dan's going to put on this thing, and it's going to translate to wins because he's going to win the games he should. Which, as a college football coach, you all know, like, those games that you're supposed to win that you lose are gut-wrenching to a season. He's going to win those games. And he's going to have a puncher's shot against these bigger schools because he's going to be in every single one. So that's why I love the hire for Oregon. And the competition isn't Auburn and Tennessee and Kentucky and all of those players, Florida, maybe a little bit, who are doing that still. He's going to have his own thing out there. And that's why I love this. And that's why Oregon, again, should be excited for this year. This isn't a program rebuilding. This year,
it is not.
Be excited.
Yep, I think Duck fans realistically have expectations for how the 2022 season will play out. Though the Pac-12 changed their rules so that it's not just the North Division winner and the South Division winner. The Ducks should win the Pac-12 North and should be able to get to the Pac-12 championship game. The conference slate is very workable, and I'll be talking about each game here in the coming weeks on the show, which is why you should like and subscribe if you have not already. But finally, and by the way, Clint, I think you just won over Duck fans with the Coos Bay shout out. That's
Come on.
that's a nice little play. You slide that in there. Duck fans like, oh yeah, all right, this guy's cool. He's got my stamp of approval as well, so that should be enough for all of you out there. But last thing I want to ask you about, and this is kind of the thing that I've been going to bed thinking about to give myself more hope than maybe I should have by the time the game actually comes around. Georgia lost 15 players to the NFL draft, 5 in the first round, and that doesn't include Nakobe Dean, who should have been a first rounder, but was not because of some injury concerns. Yada yada yada. The Eagles got a steal, and I think their future middle linebacker. I mean, that guy was often the best defensive player on the field, and he goes, what was it, the third round?
Third round. Yes, 100%. Ask anybody that's
yeah.
on Georgia, all those draft players, they're telling Nakobe Dean was the reason why they won that national championship. It's unreal.
Yeah, and so a lot of good players were on this team last year that are no longer there. So how is Georgia going to be able to fill the voids left by guys like Nakobe Dean or Jordan Davis or Travion Henderson, the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft? They recruit at an elite level. So my impression would be that they've got plenty of 4- and 5-star guys waiting in the wings. But do you expect any sort of drop-off there?
I think there's going to be a drop off. That was a historic defense, and I'll focus on defense for a second. Historic defense, I think, the best in college football history, based upon the time that it happened. Not in 2003, not 2012. We're talking.
Good point.
This is something other. This is a brand new. This is more games. This is elite. It's a whole thing. This is Alabama being Alabama for just over and over and over. Georgia comes out and does something that's not been done. But what happens to Georgia, and this is, you're right, lost so many people. 2 years ago, the drop off from talent leaving to talent coming in, there was more of a drop off between that year than there is this year or last year and this year. So we have more returning snaps this year than we did 2 years ago with the most historic defense in college football. So yes, we have guys now 2 years ago, that defense did not have the talent as last year's defense. I understand that. That's a fair point. But Tyke Smith, Christopher Smith at safety, plus cornerbacks Keely Ringo and a freshman that's who to be determined out there on the other corner. But I just listed three guys: senior, redshirt sophomore, who is right now listed as a top 5 draft pick when he goes, Keely Ringo. That defensive secondary is stout. Inside linebackers, yeah, 5-star kids who are 6'2", 235, and run a 4.4 40 everywhere at inside linebacker. And edge rushers, uh, Jalen Carter is just, holy jeez. He's the best defensive player on the field at any given time. And we got guys who are coming in who did play last year, and we saw what they can do. Nolan Smith comes back. It's top heavy for sure. And so there is going to be a drop off. I don't think that much. And I think the snap percentages that we're losing isn't as severe as it was when we brought on the most historic defense. So that gives me hope. That we don't have Jordan Davis and we don't have Nakobe Dean is probably the biggest thing that you could say about this defense. And those two guys were so instrumental. Now on offense, here's where it gets just wicked scary. We return every notable offensive weapon we could ever see. And people want to say, oh, you lost Burton to Alabama. He was our 4th best receiving option on the team. And that's not me having sour grapes. That's me in season going, Jermaine Burton is a guy that I could do without because I got Brock Bowers. I got A.D. Mitchell. Eric Gilbert's coming back, and we saw what he did at LSU. He's back. We got Darnell Washington. I got Arian Smith, the speedster, go to the top, who's it's filthy on offense. Dan Lanning is going to have his hands full taking that offense. And Stetson Bennett, people want to poo-poo on him and say he's a horrible quarterback. He just had the 4th best QBR of the entire college football last year. That's all he had. So I think if people want to understand who this team is, yes, we don't have those draft signs or those draftees that are gone. And it's going to take a step back. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I think people have oversold just how much regression is going to take place. I think last year's team was led by the defense. I think we're having a good defense. This year's team, I think 38 points a game is going to be the floor for this team. They are going to put up points. You're going to see 3 tight end sets with 6'5", 240 guys who are running faster than your cornerback, and it's going to be scary. So that's, if I'm Oregon, offense is going to do its thing, yada, yada, yada. They're going to have a puncher shot. Defense, I don't know who y'all have in that secondary. What safety is going to have to try to ride with Brock Bowers because a linebacker ain't going to do it. I'm here. A linebacker is not going to do it. Sewell can plug a hole. I've seen him. I don't know if he could turn those hips and do a 40-yard dead sprint with Brock. That's going to be interesting to see. But there's going to have to be safeties that are going to step up and take these tight ends and A.D. Mitchell down a step. That's going to be the biggest thing for me.
I think Bennett Williams and Jamal Hill are names that those are kind of big body safeties. You can maybe see Jeffrey Bossa too, who is listed as an outside linebacker, but plays, in my view, a lot like Lewis Seen. I've made that comparison a number of times here on the show. They have him here listed as outside linebacker, but I think he'd be better off at strong safety, but
like a drop down safety guy, like an
yeah,
safety?
just put him in the box. Just put him in the box. Let him roam around. If you're going to run a 4-2-5, which is what I assume Lanning is going to bring in, I think he can be one of those 5 guys. Gosh, I feel like I could go for 2 hours with Clint Shamblin of the Locked On Georgia Bulldogs podcast. You know I am happy to come on your show anytime, man. Thank you for coming on and talking to the Duck fans about the Bulldogs, and I look forward to September 3rd, which is my birthday, by the way. So if your team wants to give me a really great present, that would be an awesome – that would be a kick-ass present, but it was a treat to get to have you on the show. Thanks, Clint.
Oh, thanks, Spencer. I appreciate it, brother.
I appreciate everyone listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.